Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Willow Creek. If you're new, my name is Kenzie. Thank you guys so much for being here. So, in today's video, we are going to be doing some fun things. We're going to be canning some barbecue pulled pork. I've never done that before. So, yesterday and the day before, I had some pork butt just going in the crock pot, and I had every intention of just canning the entire batch. But I was like, I've never done it before. So I think instead of canning all of it, we're going to freeze half of it. We're going to can the other half. And then I'm going to take you guys with me to Walmart. I have several things that I need to pick up, but I want to pick up some more rotisserie chicken because the chicken and the pork are going to cook at the same time in my canner. And instead of just doing like a couple jars as a trial run, I'm like, I might as well just fill something up else in there and get it in the canner as well. So we are going to get the barbecue pulled pork canned up. We're going to can up some chicken. And then I'm also going to take you guys with me to Goodwill really quick. My mom messaged me the other day and said that they had some really cute multicolored mason jars that I want to go see. I don't need them, but I want to go see if they have them and if I might like to add them to my collection. And we'll see what else we find there. So I'll take you guys along for that. And then, yeah, we're going to come back and get some stuff done and get some things canned up. I also thought about doing some peach jam. I have peaches in my freezer that really need used up. I thought that might be something easy and quick that we could do together also. So yeah, the chicken and the pork are on the agenda to be pressure canned, but we may find other things that we would also like to can. And I'm going to let the barbecue pulled pork sit in the jars for maybe a week or so before I open that and let you guys know how it is. But we are going to be using some of my pressure can chicken that I already have to make some barbecue chicken pizza with. Since we're already getting the barbecue sauce out, I thought we might as well just do something similar, use some similar ingredients. And I noticed I was almost out of barbecue sauce too. Actually, now that I'm saying it to you guys, I noticed I was almost out of barbecue sauce. So I think we're going to pick up some tomato sauce and can up some barbecue sauce together too. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun day. We're going to get some canning projects done and go to Goodwill and see what they got. So tag along with me for the ride, guys, and stay tuned for the rest of the video.
Okay, guys, so I made it into Goodwill and I was thoroughly disappointed because they did not have what I was looking for, but that's okay. They did have a couple of these jelly jars and then they ended up having a couple pint jars that I just went ahead and grabbed. They switched their prices. Now, all of my Goodwill's pint jars and jelly jars are 29 cents each, so you can't beat that. I just went ahead and picked them up, and then I just wanted to show you guys some of the cool glass containers and just different things that they had here. I thought these serving dishes were really pretty. I don't need any of this stuff, but it is sure nice to look at. And then all of these vases, they had different colored ones. Here's all their kitchenware. I didn't need any of this, and usually they have a better selection, but still quite a bit to look at and browse through while I was in here. So I thought that all of this stuff was really neat. I try to buy secondhand whenever I can. And then my husband would also be very proud of me because I did not buy any of these baskets. They had way more than they have ever had any time that I have went in here. Now, some of them were very reasonably priced. Others were kind of pricey in my opinion, but I will probably be making my way in here to buy some at some point because I love the wicker baskets. They're so nice, especially for the garden. And then I came over to look at all the fall decor and I saw these scarecrows. I did end up picking this one up that I am checking the price on. Fall is my favorite time of year to decorate for, and I have been on a really big kick of scarecrows and decorative scarecrows. I just think that they're so stinking cute. I found this little wreath with a scarecrow in it, and I did not end up picking it up, but I thought it was super cute. And they have just like these little trinkety signs and just all sorts of things. My Goodwill is really, really good about having a really good variety of things to look through. They have brand new stuff, and then obviously they have tons and tons of secondhand stuff. And this time of year is a really good time to look for decorations. I also found these little scarecrows with a pumpkin. It was priced at $2.99 and I couldn't leave it there. So I picked this up as well. I don't have the strength when it comes to cute little things like this to just leave them in the store. I thought those, Happy Harvest baskets were really cute, and then I also found another little scarecrow, decoration that I also ended up picking up. I knew my daughter would really like this one because it's a plush. So then before I left, I just came over here to look at the signs, and this says "Save Water, Drink Wine," and I almost purchased this. I'm not going to lie. I didn't end up getting it, but I should have. And I just really like looking at all of their decor. There were 2 posters up at the top that I knew my husband would love, but they were asking $12 each for them, and I did not wanna pay that. So I left them there, and I just continued to browse around a little bit before checking out. But yeah, that wraps up my trip to Goodwill, and we did find some goodies.
So I got everything out that we needed for the barbecue pork. Now, like I said, I'm not going to do all of this canned. So we will start with some of this. I have 2 containers in my fridge. The pork butt was about 8 pounds, so we got a ton of pork from it. So we'll use this container, see how much we get in the jars, and if we need to pull the other one out, we totally will. I have my barbecue sauce in the back, and this one was already open from last night, so I will use this. Now, I did go ahead and warm this up just slightly, so it's a little bit easier to pull apart. So I think instead of combining this with the barbecue sauce in a bowl, I'm just gonna go ahead and put these in the jars and then just ladle the barbecue sauce in and kind of debubble and make sure it's mixed around really good. I was also thinking that we could do some barbecue chicken. If I wanted to, we might do that just to utilize some of the extra barbecue sauce in one of these jars, but we'll see how far we get. So I'm going to start with the barbecue pulled pork, and then I will bring the rotisserie chickens over and we will get all of those put in jars as well. So I got my hands cleaned really, really well. And so I'm just, now this pork is really tender, you guys. And I'm kind of nervous that it's going to turn into nothing in the canner. I really hope that that's not going to be the case. I've never tried canning pork before. So I am going to intentionally leave this in big, big chunks so that hopefully it doesn't disintegrate into nothing, because I did shredded chicken one time and I shredded it really fine, and it just turned into not mush, but it just, you know what I mean? It doesn't have that like meaty texture whenever you bite into it. So I'm going to try to avoid that and leave this quite chunky. If you've never canned meats before, we are going to be leaving an inch headspace. And if you wanted to can pork and you didn't want to do the barbecue sauce, you could fill this up with water. You could fill it up with broth. You could add the barbecue sauce after you open the jar, like later on whenever you go to serve your sandwiches. So if I don't like it with the barbecue sauce, we may do just pulled pork plain, or maybe we could leave one of these jars plain and I will give you guys a review on that. We might do that actually and just see which one we prefer and how they turned out, because I'm really curious with the pork. Like I said, I've never canned it before. So, I'm going to leave myself quite a bit of space on top, maybe like to right there a little less than an inch, and you can see there's still quite a bit of space in the jar. So, I'm going to go ahead and put in the barbecue sauce, and I'm going to get that incorporated really, really well. So this is my home canned barbecue sauce. And like I said, we will make more of this together today. So that will be really fun if you've never canned barbecue sauce. It's really, really easy and it's so good. But we definitely got to get all of this done first, and then we will move on to the barbecue sauce. So I'm just going to get this incorporated really well. And I don't know if this is going to work. I may have to do a bowl of it, but I thought, you know what, we might as well just try it and see how it does. So it seems to be doing okay. If I push the sauce down around it, it seems to be working all right. And definitely make sure you're using enough to get up to that inch mark. And this will incorporate too the longer I let it sit. So I still do have quite a bit of space on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit more pulled pork. And then we will add some more barbecue sauce to the top. And that will be jar one down. And as it heats up, it will incorporate more too. It's just the pulled pork is a little bit cold, and I did warm it up a little bit, but I didn't want to warm up all that fat. You don't want to, usually, you don't want a bunch of fat like in your canning. So I was trying not to get all of that warmed up to where it would be incorporating back into my pulled pork because fat can be kind of a booger whenever you are canning. It is recommended that you wash the fat off of things, but I figured since it's solidified in the bowl, just on the outside, if I warmed it up just enough to where I don't grab that, that it would probably be okay. So, okay, so we'll make sure the rim is nice and wiped off. And I am going to add just a smidge bit more of that barbecue sauce just on top to make sure that we have the proper headspace. Oh, one jar is down. Actually, you know what? On this jar, I'm going to go ahead and just put some in the bottom. Should have probably done that one on the first one too, but that's all right. First time doing it, we're learning. Like I said, I'm just making sure I keep these pretty chunky because the pressure canning process can be kind of intense and it really does break down food. So, and these are going to pressure can for 75 minutes, which works out really good for us because we can throw the chicken in at the same time and get two things going at once. So that's also another piece of advice I would say is if you are going to get your pressure canner running up and you're doing something that you have not tried before and you want to do a smaller batch, maybe just find something that processes at the same time so that you can still do two things at once. I'm just making sure I'm moving all of that around to really let the sauce get in there. I have more room on the top, so I'll add one more piece, one or two more pieces up here. And then we'll top it off with some barbecue sauce. And then this jar is going to be done. For those of you watching, have you guys ever canned pulled pork before? And if so, how do you like it? Like I said, I've never done it before, but I thought that would be a really simple thing to have on my pantry shelf. So I'm really excited. If this turns out good, I'm going to consider it a win. And I hope it does. Okay, second jar down. And that incorporated way better than the first one. So the first one will still be fine, but putting sauce on the bottom definitely helped. We'll do 3 jars of the barbecue and then we'll do one plain. And I think that'll be good. Okay, so I got my workstation all washed off and everything re-rinsed out. And like I said, I picked up 2 of these. My canner, so there's already 4 jars in there. It's only able to hold 9 pints. So I'll probably just use the rest of these, put the rest of these rotisserie chickens in the freezer, and maybe we can can them another day, or we can just have them as shredded frozen chicken. So if you've never canned chicken before, it's one of my absolute favorite things in the world. And I'm just going to go ahead and pluck this meat off and stick it right in the jar instead of doing it like in a bowl and having to dirty it. But again, you just want to leave the chunks pretty thick because the canner will make them very, very tender. So I always leave my chunks as thick as I can get it. And if there's like tinier pieces in the bag, I'll just save that to put in the freezer. But my bigger pieces of meat, I will put in the jars. So that is my advice to you. If you've never canned chicken and you want to try it, it's awesome. It's really versatile. There's many different applications you can use it for. I would just recommend leaving it in thicker chunks so that the canner doesn't completely obliterate it in the process, because it's not very fun to open up a jar and go, oh my gosh, this is like nothing. And I just started canning meats not too long ago, you guys. Probably, oh, I don't know, maybe like 6, 7 months ago. And I love it. It's really nice having this on my pantry shelf. The only thing that I have canned that I just am not a fan of is ground burger or deer burger or any type of ground meat. I'm just not a fan of it. But otherwise, I have really enjoyed having meats and things on my shelf. It's just very nice and convenient. And then it just doesn't take up so much freezer space. So, and we are going to leave an inch headspace on this too. And again, you don't want to pack it. You just, lightly put it in as much as you can. And so this jar is done. Try not to get the chicken bits on the jars as I'm doing this, but I'm going to fill all of these up first, and then we will get some water in them. And you're going to leave an inch headspace on these as well. Same process as the pork. Usually, most of the meats are the same process and same times. Now, I will say for my elevation, it's 75 minutes. You'll have to determine what your elevation is for your processing time. But usually, unless you're doing like fish or I don't even know if you can like any type of like seafoods and things. I don't know about that. But unless you're doing like fish and like wild games, most of the time your meat processing times and the applications are going to be exactly the same. I would encourage you to always double check, of course, but most of the time the pressure and times are going to be the same for most of it. So it does make it a little bit easier to remember. And if you're new and you need a refresher, be sure to check your manual that comes with your pressure canner. It will be your best friend. And you can always get on Google too and just reference your times just to be on the safe side.
Okay, guys, so next we are moving on to the barbecue sauce, and we are going to be making the Paws Bywater barbecue sauce in the new Ball Book of Canning, and I will list the entire recipe and ingredients down in the description for you. So, first off, I am using one large 29-ounce can of tomato puree. Now, the original recipe calls for 8 cups of ketchup, and for me personally, the first time that I made this, it was just way too ketchupy. So the second time that I decided to make this, I did the substitution, and this worked out really good for me. So the 29 ounces of tomato puree is basically the equivalent of 4 cups. So the ratios are exactly the same. I'm just choosing to use a different product. Now, if you don't want to make that substitution, by all means, make it the original way that it calls for. That is totally fine. If you want to swap it out the way that I did, you may also use spaghetti sauce. That would be totally fine as well. You may just have to cook it down just a little bit longer. And if you find that the puree is too thick for you, feel free to water it down also. So you can make the substitutions however you would like to in that regard. So next thing, I'm gonna start adding in some of the seasonings. So I'm going in with some fresh cracked black pepper, and then I am adding garlic salt. Now, if you had fresh garlic, you may also add that in if you would like, but I didn't have any. So next I'm adding in just some regular salt, and then this is paprika. The original recipe calls for chili powder, but I bypassed that. I don't like the way that that tastes in my barbecue sauce. So next I'm just adding some red pepper flakes. This calls for one tablespoon of this, but I'm going light because I want this to be something that my daughter will also like. So then next we need 2.5 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. So I am just going ahead and getting that in as well. And then we also need 1/3 cup of honey. Now, my honey was pretty crystallized, so it was giving me a little bit of a tough time. So, just a piece of advice, if you're going to do the honey in this like it calls for, make sure your honey is warmed through or not as crystallized. And then next, we need 1 1/4 cup of vinegar. Now, this calls for apple cider vinegar. If you are not new to my videos, you know I'm not a fan of apple cider vinegar. So I just went with regular vinegar, and you can substitute that. That's totally fine. Just make sure that your vinegar is 5% acidity. And then it calls for 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. I just eyeballed it and went ahead and got that in the pot. Now, if you don't want to add the Dijon mustard, it's probably optional. I wouldn't think that it would make or break this recipe in terms of being able to be canned. Some people add it, some people don't. So then I just went ahead and grabbed some of my more expensive honey from the cupboard that wasn't so crystallized. I like to use my a little bit more generic honey for recipes like this and save my really good honey, but it was still giving me trouble. So I just said, whatever, I'll just use this instead. So I'm going ahead and getting all of the honey in there. And then as soon as all of those ingredients are in there, we go ahead and get it combined. Now, I did forget to add the sugar whenever I was making this. So this recipe does not call for molasses, and I only had a little bit of brown sugar, so I just made it in the pan. So I added a little bit of molasses and then used a bunch of white sugar to accommodate the ratios, and that's totally fine. If you don't have brown sugar, just throw in some molasses and you are good to go. So now I'm just going to let this thicken up on my stove before we can it up. And then here is the barbecue pulled pork coming out of the canner along with all the chicken. Now, I know that the chicken is going to be fantastic, and the plain pork in the jar looked really, really good. And the color of those jars is just throwing me off a little bit. I don't know why, but I'm hoping that it turns out good. So, anyway, these process for 75 minutes. I'm just getting them all out of the canner, and then I will not touch them for a full 24 hours, and we will wash off the jars and we will get them put up on our shelves for use later. Okay, guys, so the barbecue sauce is done. It tastes incredible. I tasted it. It's nice and thick. So we can go ahead and start getting this in our jars now that the pressure canner is done. And the plain pork over there and the chicken look amazing. I don't know about the barbecue pulled pork. Hopefully, it looks a little bit better, or hopefully, it tastes a little bit better than it looks. But you know what? If it doesn't turn out, that's why we only did three of them. So I'm assuming it will be totally fine. It just, the dark color of the barbecue sauce is kind of throwing me off. But so this is done and needs put up in jars. So we are going to leave a 1/2 of an inch of headspace. And then we will be water bath canning these for 15 minutes. And I am going to go ahead and hopefully use up all of the small jars first. And then once I get done with these, I'll go to the pints. But this is usually what I fill my barbecue sauce up in. I typically don't do it in pints at all, but I have those jars out and I thought instead of running and grabbing more, I will just utilize what I already have out. So that one needs a little bit more and I will adjust the headspace on these once I get them all filled. This is so easy to make, you guys. And I was going to mention some recipes do call for different things like corn syrup. Usually recipes call for molasses. I guess maybe I might have added molasses to this the next time or the last time that I made it because I know that I had the brown sugar.
So I might have just went ahead and added it because the molasses is what gives it this like really rich color. So I'm kind of surprised the ball book doesn't call for it, but I may have added it last time because mine definitely did have this color, and it's not going to hurt anything if you add it. But I just wanted you to be aware that most recipes will call for molasses or corn syrup or something to give it that thicker consistency. And then also so you can get this color. Because a lot of your more traditional barbecue sauces are going to be more brown than they are red. Hopefully, I can get these last 2 jars filled with what's in here. But if not, I don't have any barbecue sauce in the refrigerator at the moment. So if this doesn't fill them, I will just leave the other jar in the fridge to be used for the next couple weeks. I use barbecue sauce a lot to marinate the spare ribs that you guys have seen me get out of the packages and do for meal prep. So I love having homemade barbecue sauce on hand. Okay, so then instead of using up one of my lids and rings for this one that's going to go in the fridge, I'm just going to use one of these leak proof lids. I love them, and I will link them down below for you guys if you would also like to give them a try for your canned goods. It's just really nice so that you don't have to get your lids ucky or anything like that. Oops, I'm going to wipe these off. Now, for sauces and things, you guys, I don't get too crazy about debubbling because it's like we're putting the liquid in layers anyway. So, in my opinion, they do debubble themselves pretty good. But if you want to go through the process of debubbling these, go right on ahead. And then just a disclaimer, I am reusing a couple of the lids from the previous barbecue sauce that we used. I don't reuse my lids very often, but if they are in good shape and I am recanning a product or like recycling it like am here, I will go ahead and reuse the lids. So, just a disclaimer, I'm going to reuse 2 of these, and they're already labeled with barbecue sauce on them. So, I don't recommend you do that for all of your canning products, but for some of them I do. And I do have to run downstairs and grab more rings, but that's okay.
Okay, so I am just getting everything wiped off really good and then getting all of my lids and rings on these. And like I said, they will be water bath canning for 15 minutes. It did not give me a time for the jelly jars. It just said the pints go for 15 minutes. So if you were just wanting to do them in jelly jars, I always just go by what the next jar size is for that recommended time. That's just kind of how I've always done it, and that will just ensure your product is good for the extra processing time. So I'm just getting all of these prepped and ready to go in my canner. And we ended up using some of this barbecue sauce on the barbecue pulled pork sandwiches that I had left over. And it was phenomenal. My husband loved it. And I was going to put the pizza in here for you guys, but this video is already getting really long. So next video, look out for that. I will show you how I utilize some of this, and I will give you guys a really good pizza recipe. So after 15 minutes, here are all of our jars coming out of the canner. They look amazing. It tastes amazing. I'm so incredibly happy. So I just wanted to tell you guys, thank you guys so much for watching and spending the day with me. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys have learned something new. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. And as always, I hope each and every one of you have an awesome rest of your week. See you in the next video.